What's up? What's up? Shabbat Shalom out there. Welcome to San Miguel TV. This is San Miguel, and we are live on a Friday night. You know, this is Independence Day weekend. You know, I wanted to do this live because of some of the things that's been going on in the past few weeks, and I just wanted to go over this just so some of y'all can get a good understanding of, you know, what really went down between me and this officer of Sicarii, who's been doing a few videos about me. If you want to go on this dude's channel, his name is Officer Rab Yawasap. And we're going to go over this today. This dude, I reached out to I mean, really the way this started was me doing a live with Guerrilla Hebrew about a year ago. And one of my main contentions, even though we spoke about a lot of different things on that video, my main contention was in 2nd Esdras chapter 13. You know, when you know, these Hebrew Israelites like Guerrilla Hebrew and the Sicarii, they're the ones that claim to know that the Native Americans are descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. As you know, the Sicarii Hebrew Israelites are a splinter group of this One West Hebrew Israelite faction that started with this 12 tribes breakdown. And Guerrilla Hebrew, this dude right here, who's has been a member of this group for a long time, actually came out of Great Millstone. And I believe his history has been documented for being disciplined by Great Millstone because he was arrested for selling narcotics, you know, to people or whatever. You know, that's the past. That's not really the focus of, you know, this is not really my issue with the Sicarii Hebrew Israelites. I don't want to get into people's personal lives. This is not a personal attack. But if you claim to be following this dude as, you know, a leader, you know, you shouldn't be scared of some of the history that is affiliated with this man. I really started learning about Guerrilla Hebrew when he started debating the conscious community, people like Polite and SETI and these different people that come out of the conscious community that had an issue with some of the teachings of the, you know, Black Hebrew Israelites, the One West Hebrew Israelites, particularly this Sicarii group. So I did go live in the past with Guerrilla Hebrew and Deacon Hakat. And if you listen to that video, which I believe we could pull that up here, one of my main contentions was here in 2nd Esdras chapter 13. So we could start here.
Context.
Right, they're on a vessel, right? Go ahead.
And when they had passed over, they came into the land of Gennesaret and drew to the shore.
So there was troubled waters. We know Christ here is rebuking the waters, calming them down, and that allowed them to pass over. Same exact type of phraseology in both instances. Also,
so this is one of the main contentions that the Sicarii members, like this brother Officer Rab Yawasap, had, you know, against the scriptures in 2nd Esdras chapter 13. Really, I mean, it's their understanding of passed over means that it has to be dealing with some type of water vessel passing over a body of ocean. You know, we're going to go into those scriptures so we can verify that. this criteria that they're creating that needs to be met. It's not always the case when we talk about passed over, because I mean one of the first things that comes into my head is the Passover has nothing to do with ships. But we're going to go into scriptures to show you how you can still pass over, rivers, and it doesn't have to be on a vessel, on a water vessel, which is what, these Sicarii Israelites are trying to push. They want to get that in your head.
Well, especially amongst the Native Americans, there's a saying, right, about still waters. What does still waters mean? Like a calm water, waters that are the opposite of the rapid raging waters that are dangerous and hard to navigate. So what it's saying there, or what I'm getting from that, is that the Most High ensured that the waters were still in order for them to pass over by a vessel, just like the same thing right here we read in the Gospel.
That's good. That's a good one.
They're talking about where it held still the flood till they were passed over.
All praise.
The next verse, though, like this is the one that got me right here. It says, through that country. So, which country is that? Because it seems as if they're going through a country.
Mm.
So, through that country, it took a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're on water, how can they be going through a country?
Through a country, of course. And that's why something has to be looked at the original text.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
look at the original.
So you can't go by the KJV now, which they always push and promote as the authorized and authentic version. So now there's an issue, right? When it comes to an issue with their doctrine, they have the ability now to switch it up and rephrase the scriptures any way that they want to. It's called rephrasing. You can look into that and how that plays a part into manipulation and mind control. This is what they're doing. We're going to go further into this, though.
Greek, because the Hebrew of Second Esdras, of course, does not exist. That's why you have to get these exhaustive lexicons to take a look at things like that. Okay.
So, does he have this, and has he looked at the exhaustive lexicon of the Apocrypha in 2nd Ezra chapter 13 is the question, which he never states, he's never brought up as evidence. So we just have to go by what he's saying. And this is what he says.
Instead of through that country, if you look in the lexicon, it's supposed to say through that country. I mean, to that country.
To that country.
To that country. Right? But the average brother because these lexicons, like I said,
So here we go. Now you changing what the scripture says. Instead of through that country, it's supposed to be to that country, which is a completely different context. Because if you're going through a country, you're most likely going to be walking. You're going to be on land, right? If you're going through a country. So let's go into what this dude was saying here with Sicarii Hebrew Israelite, which, how this whole thing started, before we get into this, how this whole thing started, how I got in contact with these Florida Sicarii members, was really through this brother right here, who I found as one of the Orlando members, and I commented on this Israelites speak on the U.S. Capitol shooting, right? So you can see this indigenous-looking brother here. I had commented on his thing here. As you can see, I said that breakdown of 2nd Ezra 13:45 doesn't make sense. If those are Native Americans, it says through that country. What country did the 10 tribes go through for a year and a half? Because the scriptures tell you that they went through that country, namely, it was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. Right? So going through the country took a year and a half. And you're going to see what these cats try to do with that. Now, it looks like he deleted his response because there was a response to this. And I don't see it here. I didn't respond to my own comment here. He deleted his response. His response was false. And that's why you could tell what he responded by the way that I responded to his response. So I said a region is usually referring to a country. The word region is also used as a synonym for a section. It's usually a province, a country, district, town, or neighborhood. So, when we talk about a country, he was trying to say that to that. Well, no, he wasn't going by what Guerrilla Hebrew was going by, which is just, let's just change the word through to two. He didn't want to come out and just say it like that, because now you're just changing the scriptures. You're going to see that this Officer Rab Yawasap did the same thing. But, I'm pretty much giving my rebuttal to their answer for their reasons for why the 12 tribes of Israel are the Native Americans, because that's their claim. And keep that in mind. When you're making a claim, we have to analyze your reasons for those claims. And that's all I was doing with this 12 tribes breakdown. You're going to see that Officer Rab Yawasap didn't want to defend his claims. He wanted to put me on the defense. And I ended up having to defend how the Native Americans descended from Asia, which is not the argument. The argument is, how are the 12 tribes of Israel connected to the Native Americans? So just because you're trying to say that they're not, they didn't come through Beringia and from Northeast Asia and Siberia, let's say that's wrong. That doesn't make your 12 tribes claim true. And you still had to prove that. And this is what none of these cats do. The first time I went live with Guerrilla Hebrew and Deacon Akah, they didn't do that. That's their claim. And this is what we're talking about. And all I'm debating and refuting are their reasons for those claims, not why they are wrong. You have to prove why it's true. And you're going to see how this dude tried to flip it and make it seem as if, well, you got to prove why it's wrong. This is what they always do. They reverse the burden of proof and have you prove why it's wrong. Well, the reason why we think it's wrong is based upon your reasons for why you think it's true. And I don't think they ever understand that. So, you always have to play under their rules and hold and lower your standard of evidence because of what they believe in already. And that's what I find really frustrating with having to go back and forth and go live dealing with these Hebrew Israelites, is that I have to lower my standard of proof and just, submit to, okay, let's imagine that 2nd Esdras chapter 13 is true. There's an angel that supposedly, if I really was being unfair to this brother, I would have questioned, why they even go into 2nd Esdras chapter 13 to prove that this was a true saying. How do we know that the angel got this right? But assuming that this is true, let's hear what they have to say. This is how this all started with the Sicarii, and me having to trying to go live with them again. Now it says, I said, that when it's talking about, referring to going through a country, that it's not typical for a body of water. And it seems like you're wanting to leap in that direction because of your pre-existing beliefs, this is all called presupposition. When I had my my live with Guerrilla Hebrew, he mentioned, what's the definition of a presupposition. He's aware of what this means. A presupposition is a thing tactically assumed beforehand at the beginning of a line of argument or course of action. So there were many presuppositions in this live. He presupposed that 2nd Esdras chapter 13 was correct, and that the account of what happened to the 10 tribes is true in the first place. How do we know that these scriptures are true? If I really wanted to be unfair, I would have asked him, well, how can you verify that these passages is actual history? This is historic. You're assuming it's true and trying to fit it into history is what you're doing. And that's problematic here. So, so that's what I'm talking about when I mentioned the pre-existing beliefs. And I said, it seems like you're not taking both translations into account. Why are you ignoring the part where it says through that country in the KJV Apocrypha? That sounds like an admission that 2nd Esdras 13 in the KJV is flawed, which is what they're doing when you're trying to say that it's not supposed to say through that country. It's supposed to say to that country. So here you're admitting that there's a flaw. And we have to get the GNT to corroborate that. But if you read the GNT, it clearly says that they cross over a river, which is a stream. The Lord stayed the streams of the river in order to cross over. Similar to, the Red Sea. I said, come on, son. Oceans are not called streams. I'll make more videos regarding these problematic One West doctrines. So he said, if you look at the two verses, you can clearly see it's talking about Israel traveling on water to get to a destination. That would take them a year and a half to get to. Not them traveling on foot for a year and a half. Would you like to go live and debate this topic? And I said, definitely. When? This was 3 months ago, right? And I gave him my email address. I don't know, he hasn't responded. I even responded 2 months ago, and I was like, hey, hit me up. So because of their lack of response and following up on this, because I have follow-up questions to what Gorilla Hebrew said, we can get that out of the way. I ended up reaching out to this Officer Rab Yawasap, and this is his channel right here. I'm going to go into a few, some minutes of this. I'm not going to go into the entire video because here it's 2 hours and 25 minutes long. So we can just touch on the main points. You can view it for yourself. I put the link in the description of this video. So you can go into it and view it for yourself. I'm not scared. But this is some of the music videos that Sicarii has here in Orlando. You can see Deacon Hakah. You can see the brother with that I first contacted from the Florida Zealots. I'm loading up these slugs. Every time a cracker killer sticks, we bit under the rug. We them Israelites and some of us was Crips and some was blood. Some of us was Crips and some was blood. Yeah, the Sicarii Hebrew Israelites are very, very gang affiliated. And I don't see nothing wrong with that. Pressing us, we running down on each other like why we do they job for them. Then we locked up looking at them to help niggas looking dumb. Brothers numb to the pain on all these pharmaceutical drugs. We gon' get it back in blood, yeah, how wish I come in and clutch. I pray and press the button even if I turn to dust. Pray before I go to sleep. So shortly, so we're gonna cut that.
Wanted just to clarify the question. No, he said the wicked be serving the goat in regards to the Baphomet.
But
so here it is.
Right now, I'm not.
So just to pause it real quick, I'm just gonna cut the intro because he's pretty much going into my history, which is what they love to do, is to go into my history so they could show that I'm a former believer, and they try to disgrace all of that and try to show how I'm wrong for even thinking that way. But the main thing that we were supposed to go over here was 2nd Esdras chapter 13 and Genesis 49 and Deuteronomy 33, going over the 12 tribes breakdown. This is what the name of his video shows. It says, how do you know if you're an Israelite? The 12 tribes discussion. So because he's the one claiming to be an Israelite, he has his reasons. He should be the one coming with the evidence, and then we can analyze that and critique that. We can challenge those claims and the reasons for those claims by looking at, by talking and your responses. What you're going to see that he does is he tries to not have himself be on the defense, because you could tell he was very uncomfortable being on the defense. So he tried to put me on the defense and try to prove how the Israelites are not the Native Americans, which is the opposite of what you should be doing now. Now, you're pretty much, your logic is backwards. What you should be doing is giving reasons for why you believe something is true. It's just like in a court case. It's just like how, you're innocent until proven guilty. So you have a prosecution, you have a defense. It's up to the prosecution to prove the claims to be true. Now, the defense doesn't have to prove that, no, it's somebody else, just like he was trying to do. No, you have to prove to me, where is Arsareth then? No, you're claiming that you know where Arsareth is. Let's test those claims. But this brother felt so uncomfortable doing that, and you're going to see that he aborted that mission immediately and put me on the defense. So.
Pride.
That's what I want to get into pretty much. How we can determine these things just by reading, Genesis chapter 49 or Deuteronomy 33 or 2nd Esdras 13.
Okay. Now, so in regards to identity, do you identify at all as an Israelite, or when you bring it? See, I'm just Dominican. Like, how do you identify yourself?
Well, I don't identify myself by my race. I think that's something that's very relevant to who I am as a person. I mean, it's minuscule. There's a lot of things that make up who I am. So I was born in America, so my culture is not affected by Dominicans. It might be in my DNA, but it has nothing to do with my upbringing at all. So I don't really identify with that place. I wasn't born in Dominican Republic, but I would be called a Dominican. But what is a Dominican? A Dominican is a mix of many different ethnicities, so it's a mixture already. So I understand what you're saying by saying,
So this is an important part here, because he made a second video, or he made another video after this, trying to say how I'm confused about my ethnicity. But as you can see here, I'm being honest about what the ethnic, makeup of the people in Dominican Republic are, which is European, African, and Taino Indian. Now, he's claiming to be a Hebrew Israelite. Now, who's confused now? The person that's claiming to be a Hebrew Israelite, or the person that's being honest about the genetic makeup, the complex genetic makeup of the Dominican Republic? Now, if you want to say that you're an Israelite, or that the people from the Dominican Republic are from the tribe of Simeon, you have an issue here, because you're claiming that the Africans that came through slavery are from the tribe of Simeon, the black Dominicans, and the Tainos are also from the tribe of Simeon, who are Native Americans who were already in that land. So this is an issue here, that they have no interest in trying to prove, or trying to show why that is. They expect you to just be, ignorant of this obvious contention in their 12 tribes chart. They are the ones that are claiming that the tribe of Simeon is now in the Dominican Republic, that the tribe of Ephraim is now in the land of Puerto Rico. And what happened to the tribe of Dan? Because this brother's going to try to, play me by trying to say, well, do you know where Mystery Babylon is? Do you know where this is? But do you know where the tribe of Dan is? Some things are unknown, according to even the Bible. It tells you that, that the ways of God are above your ways. So there are things that you're not going to know. But because they think that they know something, they try to flex and say, well, do you know? Mystery Babylon? It's like, come on, man. What you're doing is interpreting scriptures. Now, how do you know that your interpretation of the scripture is correct? First of all, who wrote the scripture? Why do you place so much importance on that scripture? And I didn't do any of that with these brothers. I didn't hold them to that standard. I let that slide. And I actually lowered my standard of belief just to go over what they use, the scriptures that they use, and try to interpret that. But he's going to try to make it seem like as if I'm not holding him to the same standard, or that I'm not holding myself to the same standard as him, which is completely, false. Let's go through this.
Somebody saying they're Dominican, I know Israelites say it's a made-up ethnicity, but...
So let's just go through this.
Obviously, we at the Sicarii, we do.
So they do believe in the 12 tribes chart, but you're going to see that he doesn't defend that. He's going to put me on the defense and try to say, well, why is it wrong? When you actually have to prove why it's true instead of why is it wrong. Because just because you can't prove that something is wrong, you don't have a good rebuttal, it doesn't mean that it's true. So your evidence for why it's true has to be tested. So their logic is very backwards. And this is very typical of Hebrew Israelites and religious people in general. They don't understand that they have the burden of proof. They're the ones making all these claims. So if you making the claim, you have to defend that claim. And just because somebody says, no, I don't believe it, they don't have to come up with a reason for that. Because their belief could just be based on your lack of evidence. And that was really my reason. It was just, their lack of evidence for the 12 tribes chart, but on top of that, I can go into the scriptures and show them how they're rephrasing certain things to mean whatever the hell they want it to mean. So we're going to go over that.
I think the main contention that you have, Miguel, correct me if I'm wrong, is dealing with 2nd Esdras 13, right? That's what you called me about, right?
Right. Because I never really hear a good, explanation of that, and even in the ICGC. So I want to hear what you guys say. I've heard Guerrilla Hebrew. I was on the channel before, so I've spoken to Guerrilla Hebrew, but I have a lot of follow-up questions, and I haven't been able to get back to that. And I don't know, y'all haven't got back to me. So you were the first one, so I took the opportunity to talk to you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So pretty much, going over what I already mentioned, I had a lot of follow-up questions to what Guerrilla Hebrew tried to bring up as a rebuttal to what I was saying, where it said through that country. His rebuttal was just, well, it doesn't mean that. So now he's changing scriptures, which is a thing that is against the Bible, right? You're going to add what you want it to say because you have a presupposition of who the Israelites are. So in order to get them to America, you have to change the word through to That's how you get them to America.
I mean, as far as Deacon and Alizar go, they're extremely busy. I myself, especially running with the school, etc., we find ourselves getting tied up a lot. But nonetheless, we do our best to make time for
all right.
Our
Let's just get
sisters
to it
and people who are
corroborating, evidence, pretty much. That monolith island is amongst Asians and Native Americans.
Would you say
So I'm here just bringing up certain things about what science says, right? Certain genetic connections, the monolith eyelids. Let's just pull that up real quick, man. So you don't see that what I'm talking about is this ain't no bullshit, man. All right. Bear with me here. Got some issues with my space bar, but monolith eyelids are most common in people of East Asian descent. However, people of other races with horizontal elongated eyes may also have monoliths. What's more, some individuals with larger eyelid hoods may appear to have monoliths. These are referred to as hooded monoliths. So you can find that amongst different people, but this is a genetic connection with Native Americans and Asians. It's called the epicanthic fold, right? Or the monolid eyelids. So let me see if we can find where it's most popular here. High frequency populations. The highest frequency of occurrence of epicanthic fold is found in specific ethnicities. East Asians, Southeast Asians, Central Asians, North Asians, Polynesians, Micronesians, Native Americans, mestizos, right? These are the people that were mixing with the Spanish in Dominican Republic, Cuba, and Puerto Rico, or the island of Hispaniola, Cuba and Puerto Rico. And then there's some places in Africa and in Central Asia that have this trait. But you see it's a very close genetic connection with Asians and Native Americans. So that's just one thing that I wanted to mention because it's very relevant to the topic on hand. And he just dismissed it as if it's irrelevant.
Mr. Miguel, would you say that archaeology is a good science to identify a group of people?
Archaeology, definitely.
Okay. So since you brought...
So the archaeology is what he wanted to bring up, right? So
Native Americans, who do you think they are? What people group do you think they belong to?
Well, over time, genetics and people, it varies and it changes. It all depends on... There's different factors, but I think that I subscribe to the fact that they came from Northeast Asia through the Bering Strait when the sea levels were lower. When right after what they call the Ice Age, the sea levels were lower. They were able to cross.
You're talking about over there.
The north. This is
the northwestern part of America, and then dealing with.
So this is pretty much the most substantiated theory and belief I mean, it's not even a theory as a fact of where it's not proven, because I know people get that confused with what a scientific theory is. But some theories are proven, some theories are unproven. What I think people, mistake a theory with is what a hypothesis is. What begins a theory is you start off with a hypothesis. Now, hypothesis is an educated guess that doesn't have any factual evidence yet. But you begin with a hypothesis and then you could build on that using evidence. So the Native Americans being connected to Siberians, Northeast Asians, that there's so much evidence for that it's almost laughable that this brother was trying to make it seem as if, well, where should I look? I don't, you're going to see how he was purposely playing stupid because, he has to stick to his 12 tribes chart. And from the beginning, I wanted to, make sure that this brother believed in a scientific consensus. I think we went over that already when I skipped it. But, I wanted to ask him that just to make sure that what I bring up, if he believes in archaeology, then you must believe in archaeologists and the ones that are testing these things. And what you're going to see is that he really doesn't care about the archaeologists or the archaeology. It's only if it confirms what his presupposition is, then he's just going to go with that. So here he's really, really eager and excited to bring up the Las Lunas Decalogue.
Right, which is the northwestern part of America that connects to the northeastern part of Asia, Russia, and all of that.
So what I'm talking about here, right? Let me see if I can find that. Okay, yeah, this is a pretty good map to show you. You see here the Beringia Sea, right? Sorry, it's a little slow right now, but if you can see here, you can see that Northeast Asia is really, really close to, Alaska here, which is the beginning of North America. And what I'm trying to explain to him, which is a fact, is that underwater here, there is land that connects this land. And what you don't see is because of the sea levels that we're at right now. You're not going to be able to cross today, but, during a certain time after at the end of the Ice Age, things were colder, right? So this would force the sea levels to be lower because, when water gets colder, it solidifies, right? And liquid becomes lower, right? And the solid becomes, more dense. So now we have to consider that during these times, more land was exposed. And this is a fact. They have done archaeology all throughout these different lands. And if you look up Beringia, you can see this was an actual place where people lived. And it stretches out around Siberia, around all of this, and even to the south here, where the Beringia Sea is. Now, this is a very small piece of land, which is very easy to cross. But this brother believes that this is impossible, but that the Israelites came out of, ancient time Assyria, through the Euphrates, which you're going to see that even today, the Euphrates River has been drying up. It's not so easy for you to just get to the Persian Sea and into the Arabian Sea. And then he's saying you're going to get around Africa, right? That's what he actually said, is that you're going to get around the Horn of Africa. I want to see if I could bring that video up because, I was watching videos of his brother before I went live with him just to see what he was talking about and what kind of things he believes in, or what he actually teaches about Second Esdras, because he refused to really go over the breakdown. He didn't really go over it. I had to pull up a video of him talking about it. Let me see if I can pull this up. Here it is. Okay. So let's see if we can play it.
Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over.
Alright, so they took the Euphrates around the Horn of Africa. Read.
They took the Euphrates around the Horn of Africa. You see how he's just throwing that out there with no reason, right? What he's reading here is 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 40. We could just read it. We're going to read this version in the King James, and then we're going to read the Good News translation too. Because I pulled up everything already just to have it, just to have everything ready for the live. But let's read it. It says, "Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar the king of Assyria led away captive. And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land." You're gonna see how later on he was, I told him that this other land is Assyria, and he was pressing me about, well, how do I know it's Assyria? How do we know that? You're just inserting that. Because of the fact that he wants to insert that they got some ships out of nowhere and took these ships all the way to America from the Euphrates River, which is complete speculation, has nothing to do with contextualizing the scriptures. I'm contextualizing by calling this other land Assyria. But why am I saying that? Is because if we go to 2 Kings chapter 17 to 6, it says that in the 9th year of Hosea the king of Assyria, in the 9th year of Hosea the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel captive, or carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river Gozan, in the cities of the Medes. So remember this, where they were placed, by the river Gozan. Because we're going to pull that up, just so you can see that this river, called Gozan, its location, let's pull up the map of Assyria really. You can see that Gozan was here west of the Tigris and east of the Euphrates River. Now this is the Euphrates River. If you can see my mouse, this is the Euphrates River, and it goes up here, and it goes up here. This is all the Euphrates. It actually goes all the way up to this northern part. Now, when you read the scriptures, you're going to see that they crossed the Euphrates. Now, if they were in Gozan, which way did they go? Did they go west? There's going to be a limited, locations where they were able to go if they're going to cross the Euphrates. There's different speculations. Now, I sent him a map that shows Arsareth over here on the west of this Assyrian kingdom, west of the Black Sea. And we're going to pull up how there were many, many maps. The one I sent him was just one map that I was able to get to him. But the issue here, one of the main issues that I had with this brother is that he didn't really tell me that I was going to have the ability to show my screen. He had complete control of this entire live. He lied and said that I had weeks to prepare for this. But I can show you the text messages that he told me the day before. He asked me, "Do you want to go live tomorrow?" I have the text messages that show that. And we went live the next day. What I thought what he was trying to do was just go back and forth and speak. I didn't know he wanted a whole PowerPoint, because you're going to see later on as the live went on, he was asking for me to show him specifically everything that I was saying when he wasn't even doing that. He was saying a lot of things about Lot and Moab and Ammon and how they're the Asians, and he didn't have to show any proof for that. He mentioned the Las Lunas Decalogue stone, which we're going to go over. He didn't have to show who the archaeologist that verified it, because there wasn't an archaeologist that ever authenticated or verified the Las Lunas Decalogue stone. It's never been verified. And the people that studied the stone were people that studied languages, and that doesn't mean anything. They're not dating it. They're not. You don't know when that language was ascribed on that stone. But what's funny about it, and I told his brother, is that there was never any evidence found that people encamped or lived around there, anyways. So this wasn't a place of worship. The guy that found this, who this brother would call the devil, was already a person that teaches religious studies. So he would have access to Hebrew and how they wrote it. And what the people determined, the linguists determined, was that this is actually had some Greek influence in the Hebrew that was written on the stone. So if you say that the 10 tribes left in 700 BC, this was before the Greek influence even ever hit the Hebrew Israelites. So for him to pull that shows you that he has he's holding himself to a lower standard than he's holding me. Because when I'm trying to show him, the artifacts, the actual damn body of a child that was found, a frozen Siberian child, a Siberian DNA was found in Alaska now. They came from Siberia, they found it in Alaska. That's evidence that they already crossed. And he's saying, well, that means that they all died because they found one frozen child. That means that nobody could survive because look, this child couldn't survive. That's one of the most illogical things I've ever, heard somebody say. And I'm glad I caught it live. And this brother still has this video up there. And you can watch everything that he's saying. We're not going to go through all that, but I'm going to go through some of the things that he says.
Than the understanding that the Israelites have.
I mean, to compare it is, what do we have to compare it? The evidence, like you say, archaeology, shows you that people did live in Beringia. And recently...
Yeah, so I'm talking to him about Beringia, right? Let's just go over that. The evidence that people lived in or traveled through Beringia is already there. So, give me a minute here. Yeah, we could look at the Beringia excavations. I mean, this brother was acting real stupid and trying to say, well, what do you want me to look up? Well, what are we talking about? We're talking about Beringia. We're talking about Native Americans' ancestors coming through Beringia from Asia, through Alaska. And, North American Indians, if you're saying that the tribe of Gad are North American Indians, Canada is North America. Alaska is North America. And those Indians, he says that some of them are Israelites. But why are all of them Israelites then? And why don't you subscribe to all the proof and all the evidence that shows you that they did cross over, from Asia? It's because he has his presupposition that they traveled from, Assyria. And that breakdown this is all a one West breakdown, pretty much. And they took on some of what the ancient Europeans were believing in. Without any evidence. They were just using scriptures and trying to say that we think that the Native Americans are the 12 tribes of Israel. And you can find many claims of people saying that they believe this because the customs, and we think that these words and the languages, but when you go into the language of the Native Americans in the alphabet, it's more closely related to Asians than anything else. And you're going to see some of the things that this brother brings up, his own so-called proof, his evidence, archaeology, which is the Popol Vuh, which is a Mayan Bible, even tells you that they came from Asia, or they came from the East. Now, the East, if America is the West, then Asia is the East. And this brother was saying, well, if they came from the East, then they had to go West. And that's because he's a flat earther. So I think he believes that there's an ice wall in the Pacific Ocean or something where you can't go east from the East and end up West, which is, it's exactly what it shows you, that the earth is a sphere, man. I mean, there's so many issues going into this discussion that I had to just lower my standard just to go with it, because all I wanted to get to was 2 Ezra chapter 13. And you can see how, he was trying to, He was trying to give a rephrasing of what that's talking about. We're gonna go over that, but all this archaeology that was found in Beringia, it's like, come on, man. In the Yukon and Alaska, uh, Anchorage, Alaska. I mean, and all the universities. I mean, you want to find any evidence of Native Americans being connected to Asians? I mean, it's all over the place. University of Chicago, a human dispersal from Siberia to Beringia, assessing a Beringian standstill in light of archaeological evidence. So not only do they know that Native Americans are related to Siberians, now they're trying to say that this land in Beringia, maybe people even lived there. So this is what they're debating. They're not debating that they crossed over. They're debating how they crossed over and when they crossed over and how many migrations there were. So the question of if they crossed over, if that's not even a question, it's already been proven. And I did a video that I had to remove. I had a lot of copyright strikes on it, man. I had to remove it. But I'm not here to teach you how the Native Americans are related to Asians. You can look that up on your own. And if you believe in archaeology, you can look up right here, the University of Chicago, talking about the human dispersal from Siberia to Beringia. You can look that up. You can look this up also, which is the closest known ancestor of today's Native Americans found in Siberia. This was in 2019. I mean, come on, man. Like, are you for real? Like, the dude felt like I was insulting him by telling him that anybody with a perfect brain could just Google this stuff. And he felt insulted. And I'm like, man, these cats are soft, man. You're supposed to be a thugged out Sicarii Hebrew Israelite. Man, why are you getting insulted by this stuff, bro? He was insulting me the whole time. He was mad condescending the whole time. I don't care. I know that you're going to believe what you want to believe. I understand. I'm actually empathizing with you and letting you go through your spiel, which I already know what you're going to go through. This is not up for debate at all. But of course, like, these people's time frames of the world is, they believe in this new earth creation model, which they believe the earth is like 6,000 years old, man. And this is wrong. Here's another article if y'all want to look this up, because I mean, here's another one. Ancient DNA confirms Native Americans' deep roots in North and South America. Yeah, because it came from the north down to the south. You could look up the Bluefish Caves. The Bluefish Caves, they did archaeology, and the way that they're tying Native Americans to Asians is through archaeology, is through DNA, genetics, is through linguistics, their language. And then not only that, on top of all of that, which is already, that should confirm it, now you have cultural, not only the language, but the cultural connection between Siberian shamans. You can look up this Anzac child that they found. Please look this child up, because this was found in Montana. This was a big connection with the DNA in North America, in Alaska, in Yukon, on San Miguel Island, Santa Barbara Island, San Nicolas Island, off the coast of California. They're doing excavations right now. This is still, it's still going on. This is ongoing. It's not like we've solved everything. We know everything. I'm basing my belief off the evidence that's here. This brother's basing his beliefs off interpretations of scriptures, man. Like, come on, man. This is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. Well, here's one that I was trying to. I told him that, they found these cooking areas and stuff, and this confirmed the connection between Siberians and Native Americans back in 2011. And look up all these archaeologists and paleontologists that they're naming that you can find that took the photos of all this. If you go back to this photo here, look up all these people, that are called the archaeologists, the experts in the field. Why are we listening to this dude that's giving us interpretation of a Bible? But just to read, one article here about a child that was found that was cremated, and he was just trying to ignore how the child that was found had Siberian DNA, was found in Alaska. So that's already showing you that they crossed over. And he's trying to say that this is proof that they couldn't survive, but they had already crossed over. How is that proof that they couldn't survive? You found one child, dude. And because of that one child, you want to assume that nobody survived? What if, there was like the Titanic? They found plenty of bodies in the ocean. There were plenty of people that didn't survive. Does that mean that nobody survived now? No, people survived the Titanic. So what he's saying is that, oh, look, we found people that couldn't survive. That means that nobody could survive. That's a logical fallacy if I ever heard one. But let's read this article here. It says, the child was probably dead before it was put in the fire pit and cremated. A fire pit is a cooking area. This is what I was telling you that was found. Later, the pit, which had previously been used to cook food and dispose of waste, was filled with soil and the house abandoned. So they didn't find the bodies of the parents. They only found the body of the child. So, but you're saying, no, we're going to assume that the parents also didn't survive. So it was very condescending and just, I mean, the way that, I know how these brothers, especially people that have rank now and try to teach. Officer Rab Yawasap, right? So he thinks he's a teacher, a rabbi. Yawasap is Joseph. He thinks he's an Ephraimite. He thinks he's chosen now. His confidence level is sky high for no reason, and it's sad, but I didn't want to make it a personal thing. It's not about this guy. It's about his belief. It's not even about Guerrilla Hebrew, but he, shows himself as the leader and the head of this damn place. So, you gotta get at these cats. That's why I wanted to go live. I'm not scared to go live with these cats. Now, did I know that I was gonna have to present, why the Native Americans are connected to Asians? No, he never, that was never the contention. The contention was how we know that the Israelites or that the Native Americans are related to the 12 tribes of Israel. And finding one stone somewhere and saying that, you see, we found this stone here in New Mexico. That means that all the Native Americans are Hebrew Israelites based on one stone that you found in one location. That's out of context. And that's why it looks like this is a red flag, that this is probably a hoax. Just like the Las Luna, just like the Back Creek stone. You can find articles and papers of proof. People have actually proven the Back Creek stone to be a hoax. It's been proven false. Now, if you say it's true, give me the reasons for why you say it's true. Otherwise, you're just telling me that you just believe any artifact to be true, and then if it isn't proven false, it must be true. That's not how that works. You need to prove it true. You need to give me the evidence for why it's true. Then we can analyze and talk about that. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to put me on the defense. This is what they always do. This is why it's frustrating talking to them, but, I'll do it. I already know. I already expected it. And, just because my reasons for why the Native Americans are connected to Siberians might not sound right, it doesn't mean that the Native Americans are Israelites. So, let's go back to this video here.
A frozen Siberian child that was found. You can look that up recently. They tested the DNA. They found this is definitely the majority of the DNA that's in Native Americans comes from Siberia. Siberians have shamans who also wear the feathered hat. They wear fringes. They do all of that. So
there you go. Here's another thing that he's just, smiling and just ignoring. But let's look at the shaman from Siberia, right? Let's just look at some of these images of the Siberian shamans. As you can see, this was something I added to my video. I got hit with a lot of copyright strikes, so I just deleted the whole thing. But this is a Siberian here. Now you can see him with the fringes, the feathered hat. Now let's take a look and see some Native Americans. So, like I was saying, not only is there a genetic connection, linguistic connection, an archaeological connection between Native Americans and Siberians, Northeast Asians, there's also spiritual connection or a religious connection. I mean, right here, just Google Native Americans in the United States, and it'll tell you that they came, you know, from Asia. They'll talk about the alcohol in the Native Americans, right? That's another thing that shows you Native Americans have a lot of issues metabolizing alcohol, and so do Asians. That's a common thing among Asians. So that's another genetic connection. This cat was trying to mention Lot and Moab, and it's like, well, how can you even prove that, man? Like, those excuses, I just let it slide. But he's just so like dismissive of everything I'm already, you know, showing. But you know, let's look that up. Let's go into more of the Siberian, you know, the shamans from Siberia. Compare them to the Native Americans. Siberian shamanism. Look at the embroidery. There's a lot of connections. The spears that they use also. This is another main thing that we need to look into is the Clovis spears, they call them, that was found amongst the in America, that they connected with Asia. These humans that developed this technology called the Clovis spears. Sorry, let's look into that. This is another connection with Native Americans and Asians. Clovis Point. Clovis points are the characteristically fluted projectile points associated with New World Clovis culture. They are presented in dense concentration across North America and South America. They are largely restricted to the north of that continent. Clovis points date to the early Paleo-Indian period, with all known points dating to the 600 years, roughly between 13,500 to 12,800. So another thing, now they say Native Americans, or I'm sorry, the Black Hebrew Israelites say that the 10 tribes were the first in America, but we have all this evidence dating back to 12,000 years ago that connects Native Americans to Asians. And then there's also some evidence, because it's not just Asians, there's also evidence of Polynesians and Australians. But these are ancient Paleo-Australians now, which, you know, Hebrew Israelites don't even believe in none of this Paleo stuff. But this is exactly what the evidence leads to. But this is very little DNA that was found. It's about 80% of Native Americans are connected to Siberians. Like the DNA is like 80% of Native Americans. Then you have a small amount of Polynesians, Australians, Micronesians. You know, there's some connection that they found in Colombia. You know, I want to go through that too. But, you know, look into this Clovis point. This is the connection, a main connection that they found with the technological tools that they use to kill their food. Because this is what they found evidence of, man. I mean, one of the main things that they found was these points next to carcasses of mastodons, you know, mammoths and deers and different things that they ate. They all ate the same thing. Not only was there a migration of humans from Asia to America through Beringia, there's a migration of animals also, and all types of what they call fauna and flora. You know, like there's so much evidence that connects Asians to Native Americans that it's like, I mean, I know the brother felt disrespected because, you know, he had control of the entire life, so he refused to just do a simple search. He made it seem like it's so difficult. Like, Where do you want me to search? I mean, you can close your eyes and throw a dart, and you'll hit, and you'll come across one of these articles. But I guess let's just go back and let me see if
that's
there's anything relevant.
Also, but like I said, the dentistry is very, very big. That's a big science that confirms that. The monolith eyelids, their metabolism, the fact that they both have trouble metabolizing alcohol.
So when you say that's a big science in regards to the Bering Strait, you do understand that the Bering Strait is still simply a theory. And when you say theory, it's because it's only based on the smallest amount of facts.
No, that's incorrect. And I went over that, but let me just go over that really quick, man. This is very common of religious people that don't want to accept science, right? So we have scientific theory versus theory, right? Let's look up the differences between that. Just a theory. This is a common thing that people say. It's just a theory. What is a scientific theory? That's what we need to know. And is there a difference between scientific theory and theory? Let me see. Let's find out. So, let's go back. Because we have like the theory of gravity. We have the theory of relativity. And if you want to say that those things have a little bit of evidence, you're just misled. And you're trying to mislead other people. I don't want to read that. Actually, let's read what a scientific theory is, I guess in the dictionary. I'm doing all this live. I haven't, gone through this, but scientific theory is a coherent group of propositions formulated to explain a group of facts or phenomena in the natural world and repeatedly confirm through experiment or observation. So there's a difference between what a scientific theory is and just a theory. So the way that he's explaining it is just incorrect.
It's not necessarily not proven. Theory is a body of facts.
That's not what I said. So for example,
there he is trying to look it up.
A theory, the definition of a theory is a supposition or a.
He's looking up the definition of a theory, but we don't care about what the definition of a theory is, because there's a difference between scientific theory versus a theory. They don't really go by that law anymore, like what they call Newton's law. Newton's law got replaced by the theory of relativity. So, really just to go over that. There we go. Let's just go through this, because this is a good explanation. Like, I wanted to put it side by side so you can see how people can use this word, differently today. But let me see here. I don't know if y'all can see this here, but it says, in science, what's a science theory? It's not a guess, a hunch. Hypothesis is what people usually mix it up with. A hypothesis is an educated guess or a speculation. So none of this defines what a scientific theory is. But in every day, you might use the word theory as a point of view or a belief system or a theory that may vary, like upon, different situations. But, so that's the first thing that he tried to confuse.
Ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles, independent of the thing to be explained. So it's not something to be taken completely literally, because not only is it based on a minimal amount of facts, but it's mostly based on a general principle or a supposition of someone's idea.
That's. I mean, everything is based on a presupposition. Everything is based on you assuming. Just like he bases his belief that the 12 tribes of Israel or the 10 tribes ended up in America because he assumes that the scriptures are true. So if you assume that those scriptures are true, that's leading you now to a conclusion. But how have you confirmed that conclusion? There's nothing wrong with assuming as long as you can confirm those assumptions. Problem with him, what he doesn't understand when he says that, see, in Sicarii, we have identified America as Arsareth. So what? That doesn't mean that America is Arsareth. It's because you identified it. Because what are your reasons for that? And according to what he's going to show, 2nd Esdras chapter 13, you're going to see that this is just not good enough reasons. But let me see if we can just forward some of this a little bit.
That's a common mistake that people make, but that's
Okay.
fine.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
The common mistake that people make is confusing scientific theory with just a regular everyday, word, just using
Yeah,
a
you can look
theory.
that up too. I'm telling you, people do that all the time. I used to do the same thing.
And that's true. I used to do the same.
Yes, sir.
I used to say the same thing. He completely ignored me, but I used to say the same thing as a captain of 13,000 in the ICGJC. I became an officer almost immediately. Well, it took a few years, but my status doesn't even really matter because I was studying the scriptures and their evidence. All this Las Lunas, Decalogue Stone, 2nd Esdras, the Jewish Encyclopedia, and all of that. I was using that just like IUIC, Sicarii, and all of them. This is their evidence. These are their reasons for believing why the 10 tribes are Israelites, why Native Americans are Israelites. The reasons are not good enough. If you're going to use artifacts that haven't been proven and interpretations of scriptures, and you're telling me that's better than DNA, genetics, archaeology, and all the evidence that, all these people that work in the field of archaeology and paleontology for universities that have their reputation on the line, you're going to tell me that these people, are confused because you have an interpretation of a scripture?
The word theory in everyday jargon is not the same as what a scientific theory is. A scientific method can be repeatedly tested, and I'm giving you like genetics, like dentistry is that's very important, to show you. And
yeah, the dentistry of Asians and Native Americans. That's all he had to do too. It's like he got really stupid and just ignorant. Like, what should I look for? I'm telling you right here. Like, why are you playing stupid? Let's just go to the first thing that comes up here. Quantitative complete tooth variation among East Asians and Native Americans. Developmental biology as a tool for the assessment of human divergence. All right, so I'm not going to read everything here, but just so I could show you how simple it is just to Google something and come up with the answers for this right in the right here in Google. Shovel-shaped incisors. And this is part of the the teeth. They're this is what, if you can't identify a burn victim, you have to go into the dental records, and the dental records even show you that Asians and Native Americans are connected. Right here, shovel-shaped incisors are significantly common in Amerindians, North, Central, South America. They are also common in East and Central Asians, Hungarians, Inuit, and Aleut peoples of Northeast Asia. The Inuit people are actually where the Native Americans descended from. And as you can see in this photo, let's see if we can pull this up. You can see the embroidery. You can see their monolid eyelids. Everything about them screams Native Americans. You see their fringes here. Now, he was trying to say that because I was trying to explain how Siberians wore feathered hats. And I said, just like y'all say that Native Americans have fringes and that's similar to Israelites. Well, here is a common thing in how they dress. This is their dress code, which is very, very much in tune with their culture. And I'm comparing that, and I'm like showing them, listen, look, you got Asians and you got Siberians and Native Americans who wore feathered hats. And I told them, you guys say that, Native Americans and Israelites have fringes. So those are two similar connections with the clothes. And he said, oh, that's a false equivalence because you're comparing a law to something that people just wear as the dress as part of their garments. But the law was a garment, part of a code that they wore with a dress code, pretty much. So that's what the law was. Just because it's a law that you believe, I don't believe that this is some law given from God or some special laws, therefore it makes it a false equivalence. You need to prove to me why it's a false equivalence and why the law of the fringes is so much special than somebody wearing some feathers in their hats. But the Native Americans and Siberians also have a connection with wearing fringes. Just like they say that, well, Native Americans and Israelites wore fringes. So what do you have to say about the Siberians that wore fringes? Are they Israelites too? Or some of them are Israelites, right? That's how they muddy the waters. They never admit that these connections that they try to make, it doesn't make sense, man. It doesn't matter that you find something in their clothes. Oh, they wore fringes. So what? A lot of people wore fringes. The Chaldeans wore fringes. The rich wore fringes amongst the Chaldeans. That's something that was supposed to indicate superiority or something like that. So that could have been something that the Hebrew Israelites got from another culture. So if the Hebrew Israelites got it from another culture and other people got it from that same culture, now you're going to say that, well, Hebrew Israelites do it and this culture does it. They must have got it from the Hebrew Israelites? That's not how it works, man. You're just completely disregarding linear time. You're not seeing that in 700 BC, there were already Native Americans. There were already all types of people in this land that today is known as America. So this is just illogical and just a fallacy and just incorrect way of trying to come to a conclusion what this brother's doing. Let's go back to the video.
Mexicans and Haitians are genetically connected, but Mexicans and Asians are not.
Yeah, so this is common sense, man. You're telling me that Mexicans and Haitians are genetically connected, but Mexicans and Asians are not? Come on, bro. Stop lying to me right now. You have the burden of proof now because you have an extraordinary belief that Haitians and Mexicans, who you say are Levi and Issachar, who have the same father and mother, Jacob and Leah, now you're telling me that somehow these people still ended up coming back together, even though they have the same lineage, but they ended up looking completely different. Listen, man. Well, all they do is say, oh, we go through the same problems. We go through this. We have the same hardships. That doesn't mean that you're genetically connected to somebody just because you're poor and they're poor. Because you can find people in Mexico that got money, man. You can find people in Colombia that have money. Just because the poverty levels are high in some of these areas like El Salvador. There's so many issues with this 12 tribes doctrine. The dude just completely refuses to go over the 12 tribes doctrine. You have Guatemala, which borders Mexico, but the DNA that's found, the genetics in Guatemala is very similar to the Mexicans that border Guatemala, which is in the Yucatan Peninsula. And their DNA is connected to Mayans, Aztecs. But they say that, no, the Mexicans are Issachar and people from Guatemala are Zebulun. But the only reason, or the only way of indicating or trying to identify how they know that Zebulun are the Central Americans is by the Panama Canal, when the scripture says that Zebulun shall dwell by the haven of the sea. A haven is not known as a intercrossing or a canal. Even though they have havens in every sea. All over South America and Trinidad, they have havens in Guatemala, they have havens in Nicaragua. They have havens in Mexico. So Panama Canal is not known for being a haven. is known for being a canal for you to cross over from one ocean, one body of water to another body of water through this small piece of land, this man-made canal. And then it says, and their border shall be to Zidon. I mean, that's a scripture. Let's go back. Let's go to that, because this is their breakdown that they refuse to go to. Right? But why do they stop in Guatemala? How is it Guatemala to Panama when the Panama Canal is only in Panama? So in Guatemala, the DNA shows that they're connected to Mexicans. But you're saying that Zebulun and Issachar are two different tribes. So let's read the King James. It says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for a haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Now, where is Zidon in the Bible? Zidon is by the sea. And that's exactly why it's saying that. Now, do you have evidence that Zebulun was dwelling by Sidon? There might not be any evidence of that. Maybe there's no map that shows that Zebulun's land was somewhere else. But it's still saying that they shall be by Zidon. So just because you don't have that evidence doesn't mean that didn't happen. Maybe you just don't have that evidence right now. But that's what the scripture says. But you're telling me that that's the Panama Canal and that the people of Zebulun are now in Central America based off that scripture? Now, that just doesn't make sense. But let's go through the main contentions
listen
here.
to what you're saying. You know, like, let's think about that.
I'm listening to what I'm saying. Can we go? Let's deal with what you called me about. Let's deal with it right now. Right? Let's go to 2 Esdras 13. This is the problem that you have. So, in regards to this, 2 Esdras chapter 13, we're going to start at verse 40. I would like to really harp on the fact that verse 46, but we're going to read through it.
Okay.
So, verse 40 says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land. In the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanassar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. Right? So obviously he was dealing with the Assyrian captivity around 700.
So obviously it's dealing with the Assyrian captivity, so the other land must be Assyria, right? But you're going to see later on he was trying to press me about, how do I know it's Assyria? How do I know it's Assyria? Well, the context lets you know that it's Assyria. And how do you know that they took ships from the Assyrians and took it to America based off of these scriptures? And he says, well, that's context. There's no context that shows you that where they got these ships from and which direction they went and where Arsareth is. There's nothing that shows you that. But he's going to tell you, he's going to try to show you that. And he knows definitely that America's Assyria. And my thing is that I don't think anybody knows, that America's Arsareth. And my thing is that I don't think anybody has proven where Arsareth is. So it's unknown and unproven. Just because you have an answer for it doesn't mean that it's right. That's the same thing the ICGJC does with the tribe of Dan. Just because nobody knows where it's at and they have an answer for it, they always boast about, we know where the tribe of Dan is and nobody else knows. The same thing that these cats do.
BC circle. Now, when it says he carried them over the waters, what mechanism do you think is used to do this?
There's many different ways to carry people over waters.
I'm asking you.
He's asking me. He wants me to answer him something that's unknown. It doesn't tell you what mechanisms they used, first of all. So there's many different ways that you can carry people over the waters. If it's a river and it's not that wide, especially if you're going through narrow passages, guess what? You don't need a ship to get somebody over a river. The Euphrates River is sometimes even dried in certain places and very narrow where you can get them over just using a flat floating device. I don't know what those are called. I forget what they're called, but he knows what I'm talking about. And I mean, if you can just do that real short for a few seconds to get somebody over, you can do that over and over and get a lot of people across. But if he wants to say that it was ships, that's fine. I don't mind saying that. But he's missing the point where it says they came into another land. Now they're no longer on the ships. They were in Assyria for a while. The history shows you that the Israelites, this didn't happen in 1 second. This is, like he said later on, this is supposed to be an angel surmising what happened. So this didn't just happen in one day. This was over time that the Israelites decided we're going to get out of Assyria. And we don't even know if what the angel supposedly saying is even how accurate it is. How do we know how accurate this is? If I really wanted to be unfair, I would have pressed them out. Oh, how do we know this is even accurate? This is supposed to be an account in the Apocrypha, which is supposed to be considered pseudepigrapha, and even in the Book of Ecclesiasticus, it shows you that Book of Ecclesiasticus wasn't written by one person. There were people adding to the Book of Ecclesiasticus over time. Read the preface to Ecclesiasticus, and it shows you that the son of Jesus, the son of Sirach or whatever, Jesus, the son of Sirach, this was a common saying that was taken over time. This wasn't something that was, given to, Sirach by God. This is just bywords and common sayings and knowledge, things that were handed down. So for you to say that this Bible was inspired by God, now you have to prove that. And I'm being extra nice and not, pressing you on that fact that you need to prove that these words are even actually true. We don't know that the Israelites even came to, or what Arsareth is. Maybe it was inhabited. Maybe there were people around there. But, we don't know how true these statements are that was given by the so-called angel to Esdras. We're just assuming that it's true, and I'm playing along with him.
There could be many different things, and I've seen where they even use like these flat floating mechanisms that are just these flat mechanisms, especially if the river is narrow, you can get easier across through the narrower passages.
Exactly, which is something that he completely ignores because if rivers are narrow, that means it's not wide. That's the opposite of wide, where you would want to enter your boats and ships into wide areas. But if you're having narrow passages, why would you want to get ships in there? And you're going to see that he wants to focus on this, but as we read on, it moves on, and it actually doesn't even talk about any ships anymore.
So it makes it easier for you to get across the river if it's narrow, right?
So again, Mr. Miguel.
Well, let me ask you, what are the waters? Are we talking about rivers?
Hold on. You have yet to even answer the question I asked you, brother.
But you have to, why don't you specify the question? I'm asking clarification on the question. What are the waters that they carry them over? They're rivers. So do we really need a bunch of ships to carry people over rivers? So is he speculating? I think that is speculation. We don't know what was used.
What the waters are in verse 40. Are those the rivers, the river Euphrates, and water, an ocean?
Hold on. And first, you seem to be a very knowledgeable person, very scientific. So you should be aware of the geological locale.
Yeah, and he should be aware too, because before what he was telling me was that they went across the river Euphrates. Oh, I'm sorry, that they went around the Horn of Africa. And that's what. Let me see here. Well, let's continue this video because he's gonna say it here.
That country, there was
Right?
around the Horn of Africa.
And they went around the Horn of Africa, right? Where's the Horn of Africa at? The Horn of Africa is actually right here by Ethiopia. This is the Horn of Africa. Let me type it in so you guys can know. Sorry, this is a little slow here. Horn of Africa. Boom. Right there, right? This is the Horn of Africa. Okay. So he's saying that the Israelites came around the Horn of Africa. This is the Horn of Africa right here. But what really happened is that they were in Assyria, which is around modern day Iraq. Actually up here more. He's saying that they came south through the Persian Gulf, around the Gulf of Oman, right here, which is land is Oman. Horn of Africa's down here. He thought that the Israelites in this description in Second Esdras is talking about this. That's what I think he was talking about. But he was trying to clean it up later and say that he thought that this was the Horn of Africa, that South Africa is the Horn of Africa. Either way, regardless, now you're going around countries now. Once you hit the Arabian Sea and all of this, now you're in the open seas and you're no longer going through any countries. Now you're going around countries by your own admission.
There was a great way to go. Namely, a year and a half. The same region is called Arsareth.
It says what?
And the same region is called
I mean,
Arsareth.
his reader can't even pronounce Arsareth
The
correctly.
same region is called Arsareth. Any scholar will sit there and let you know that Arsareth represents America.
That's not true. Any scholar would not tell you that. Arsareth represents America. Where he's getting this from is where the Jewish Encyclopedia tells you that Christopher Columbus supposedly identified America as Arsareth. And you're going to see that based upon the evidence that they provide, which is Kayserling's Christopher Columbus, which I already looked this up. I could not find where it actually says this, because Christopher Columbus had a diary, man, and everything you need to know about Christopher Columbus is right there in that diary. I'm gonna see if I could find this this book, because I actually pulled it up. And if you read it, it doesn't say that Christopher Columbus ever identified Arsareth as America. That's not what it says. It says that Christopher Columbus had the book of Fourth Kings, which is Second Esdras. Let me see here. Oh, here it is. Perfect. So this is Kayserling's Christopher Columbus and the participation of the Jews in the New World. So Jews have been coming into America for years, influencing Native Americans. From 1492, because Jews were all in Spain and Portugal. So later on, when you read in the books of like James Adair and Lee Eldridge Huddleston, which is talking about Jewish influence on Native Americans, how do you know that Jewish influence didn't come from the Spanish that were already there for hundreds of years influencing the Native Americans? So there's a lot of issues with these cats, man. But let's pull this up here, where it talks about if I could get this up here. Let me see. I gotta download the actual article. Oh, here it is. Okay, so we already got it. Let's pull it up. And we'll read it. It said it was on page 15, right? Let me make this a little smaller here. Sorry, my system is a little slow here. I don't get a good connection in this room. But let's zoom out a little bit here. So this is pretty much the book that is supposed to be a reference of where, how we know that Arsareth is America based upon what Christopher Columbus said. Now, you're going to see that this doesn't even give you, that answer. So for them to use that reference, like the brother from IUIC did, when, in the video that I did with IUIC called Encounters, the first thing he went to was, Christopher Columbus identified America as Arsareth. Where? There's no proof of that. This is actually all based off this guy's book, who lived way after Christopher Columbus. He didn't know Christopher Columbus. So why y'all so quick to point this out? Let's go to page 14 though, right? Or page 15. Let me see if we can zoom out a little bit more. All right, So the page is locked. Ah, come on, man. See, I have it on my phone though. Let me see. Page 15, was it? Let's see here. It would be on page 15, which is called his scientific equipment. So let me see if they let me even get there. Here you go. Okay. Boom. Let me see. Page 15, right? Let's start at page 14, just so we could get the whole thing. All right. Aristotle, Strobel, Seneca, and the other Latin Greeks, let me move it over here, was derived from Pierre Diali's book. The Imago Mundi was his constant traveling companion, and his copy of it is filled with his own marginal annotations. Besides the Kudo's astronomical tables already mentioned, he possessed some of the works for him or ascribed by Abraham Ibn Ezra, for example, the little book on the critical days. All right, so let's just scroll down here. Later in Spain, he read with religious zeal the tract on the Messiah, which was written by the proselyte Samuel Ibn Abbas of Morocco for the purpose of converting R. Isaac of Sugermente. It had been translated into Spanish in 1339 and into Latin 100 years later. This book interested Columbus so much that he excerpted 3 whole chapters. He was also very fond of reading the Bible and the 4th book of Ezra, which is probably written by a Jew who lived outside of Palestine. According to his own assertion, the incentive that impelled him to plan his discoveries was not a love of science, but his interpretation of the prophecies of Isaiah. In Portugal, Columbus earnestly conceived the idea of making maritime discoveries by way of the West. Now, when it mentions the 4th book of Ezra, we know it's talking about 2nd Ezra. Now, does this say here that he identified America as Arsareth? It doesn't say this anywhere. When you keep reading here, it says, he wished to find a new ocean route to the regions of Cathay and Cipango, which are reputed to be rich in gold and spices. This is in Asia. And when he got to the Americas, when Christopher Columbus got to the Americas, he called it the Indies. He thought that the Native Americans were Asians because they looked like Asians. Nowhere in this chapter do you see anything about America being called Arsareth. So for you to pull the Jewish encyclopedia as some form of evidence without checking first is just irresponsible. And I wish I would have came across this, earlier, because what I always used to say was just, why do we just accept this Jewish encyclopedia as true? We have Christopher Columbus's diaries. We can pull that up and read it today. Nowhere in there do you see that he ever attributed the Native Americans to Hebrews. So this is all lies, and this is a lot of these lies were actually pushed by Europeans.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Carried them over the waters, right? So, regardless of the body of water, what do you think the mechanism was that was used to bring them over the waters?
What do I think?
Yes.
There could be 3 different mechanisms. Bullshit. I mean, 3. There could be many different mechanisms.
Yeah, what do I think? See, he's trying to get into what I think. It doesn't matter what I think. What does the scripture say? It doesn't verify. It doesn't specify these things. And he's trying to push, because he wants to get the ships there.
I mean,
Something that floats over, and something that is conducive to bringing hundreds of people somewhere, right?
It didn't all necessarily have to be on one vessel.
Yeah, so that's another thing. He thinks that they all had to be on one vessel, like it was a long trip across the water. But that's why I wanted to find out what waters did they carry them over. Man, he's not going into that at all. But, whatever.
No. I didn't say one vessel, but the Northern Kingdom wasn't only 20 people. it wasn't only 200 people.
How
See what
many
I'm saying?
people was it?
The Northern Kingdom, I mean, especially around 700 BC, I mean, I would say it's probably more than.
But if it took them all the way up to the
Especially
river
considering
goes on.
Chronicles and things of the nature that we have.
Let's go to these maps here. This is where it goes on is right here. You see where this is? And look at its distance. It's very important that you recognize the distance that it is from the Persian Gulf and its proximity to the Euphrates, which would be west. This is the Euphrates here. Now the Euphrates is also south, but I don't think that they would go south if they were trying to get away from Israel. I think that they would go further as they were already taken north. I think that they're going to keep going further north, either up here, where in Scythia, there is evidence of Israelites living there in 600 and 700, 500 BC, which is not too long after this. So for you to claim that they came into America, then why do we have evidence of them popping up as the Saka Israelites in Scythia or Scythia? Why do we have evidence of them being here? Let me see if we could find. Yeah, here we are. Here's Gozam. Now, let's find some maps. Now, I sent this brother a map of Arsareth, or what is, what people assume where Arsareth is, based upon different things. I mean, one of the things one of the reasons why they think it's up there is because of the history of the Scythians and the Cimmerians. Look up the Cimmerians also. This area is not an inhabited area. There's a lot of mountains up here. So it would make sense that there was never before inhabited and the Israelites came there and now they inhabited. So you can see Arsareth is here northwest of the Black Sea, which was the map that I showed the brother. It was another map that looks similar to this. I was trying to show him this. Now, here is the river Seret. This is what I was showing his brother, that Seret is a river right up here, where it could have been where the Israelites went. Arsareth, Seret, west of the Black Sea, right? West of Assyria. Now, if they went east, they could have hit around here, and later on settled, around what's called Urartu, north of Urartu, because Arsareth, Urartu, Armenia, all these places, Ararat, this is all around here. So I would think that Arsareth was up there also, but, that's debatable. And here's another map that shows Arsareth northwest of the Black Sea. Here's Assyria. You can see why it would take 1.5 years for them to travel, all the way from here to up there. If this is true. And I would ask his brother, well, what happened to the tribe of Dan? Where did they go? Are they part of the 10 tribes? Are the Levites part of the 10 tribes? When did the tribe of Dan break off and now they became the 12 tribes? There's no answers for these things amongst the Sicarii Hebrew Israelites.
That they number themselves, etc. Right?
Right.
Even
Assuming.
All right, so let's just cut this real quick because this brother goes in the midst that
Can you hear me?
he was confused about where the Horn of Africa was
I
at.
can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had got cut off and then I came back on.
Oh.
So, he pulls up this map here just to show how he was confused about where he thought the Horn of Africa was, pretty much. But
Some places say they went west of the Black Sea, where there is a map that shows some place called Seret, Arsareth. And
yeah, so this is exactly what I just finished showing this, brother. Or I just finished showing you guys. I wasn't able to show my screen. This brother's showing his screen. He didn't tell me that I was gonna have access to doing all of this. He told me the day before. He asked me if I want to go live, and I said, of course. Let's go over the second Ezra chapter 13 thing. But it all led to me trying to prove how the Native Americans are Asians. You'll see.
I've seen that map. I mean,
Do you have that to show?
the map.
Or whatever it is that you're talking.
Yeah. So we already showed that. So let's just skip that and then just go to where he's breaking down his version of this, whatever. At 2nd Ezra chapter 13.
So if they kept going further,
Hold on, Miguel. Hold on, Miguel, because you even said something to me, that you were trying to correct me on. It doesn't say that they kept going further. It says that they just were trying to go somewhere far.
Yeah, they went to a further country. I mean, this doesn't mean that they went to America. It just means that they went further than Assyria. They went to a further country than Assyria was at. They went away from the heathen. So it was further away from how far they were already. He's trying to make it seem like they went really far, so that means they went to America. That's not necessarily true. This is just talking about how they went to a further country, further away from Assyria. Or from that other land that they were taken to.
Where nobody was at. They was just, basically, when you want to get away from somebody, you going to go as far. Even today, people say, I'm trying to go to the ends of the earth to get away from this person. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
They
they go forth into a further country.
Yeah, somewhere that's far away.
Well, somewhere that's farther.
Nobody's at.
Somewhere that it's further means farther. So farther than what? Farther than Assyria, right?
Yeah, it's far away from Assyria. Where nobody.
I'm just looking at some of the comments here. You can see some of the ignorance here. You can look into it. So if it's a theory, it's not a fact. That's just not true. A theory is made up of a body of facts. And then this cat says, an educated guess. An educated guess is a hypothesis. It's not a theory. These people always confuse these things. Please learn the difference between a hypothesis and a scientific theory.
It's far from Assyria. Nobody's there. And they damn sure don't want to be around the heathen. Right?
Okay, so what?
By shit.
Oh, here we go. Hold on. Oh, yeah, we definitely got to get
of the river. Right? So they get into this body of water. Right? Verse 44. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood, till they were passed over. And when we see this particular Old English phraseology in the Bible, it's typically in regards to using a ship. You understand what I'm saying? As a matter of fact,
untrue.
Which one? What? The passed over?
The phraseology of passed over, yes.
Untrue. So I mean, I had already went over that, and I had Joshua chapter 4 and 23 ready. But here are a bunch of scriptures that show you passed over, where it's not talking about ships. Genesis 31 and 21. Doesn't mention any ships. Doesn't mention dry land, because he kept specifying. Once I brought up Joshua 4 and 23, he was like, but still, in 2nd Ezra chapter 13, it doesn't say that they passed over dry land. Why does it have to be dried? It doesn't tell you it has to be dried. They could still pass over and it doesn't have to be dried. It doesn't have to be dried up. When we read the Good News translation of 2nd Ezra chapter 13, and we read that same scripture where it said it stayed the waters, it says, verse 43, when they had to make the difficult passage across the Euphrates, God Most High performed miracles for them and blocked the channels of the river until they had crossed over. So this is the same thing it's telling you here. And they entered into the Euphrates. They entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of a river. Narrow makes it easier for you to get across the river. Wide, it's more difficult, right? If it's narrow, it's very easy. It's easier. Verse 44, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. Held still the flood. Does an ocean flood? No, the rivers flood. Rivers flood, and what it's saying here is that it was held. The flood was held. When you read 2nd Ezra chapter 13, same verse, in the Good News it says, God the Most High performed miracles for them and blocked the channels of the river until they were crossed over. So why don't you look at all the translations of the scriptures? You want to be sneaky and just go by what 2nd Ezra chapter 13 is saying, because in there it doesn't specify, certain things. So you can get away with saying that, oh yeah, look, they crossed an ocean and got to America. But you'll see as we read on, this dude was playing games, man.
I know in Joshua 4:22 it says they crossed over. So passed over what?
Okay, so really
He doesn't
quickly,
answer that question. Right?
So in Mark,
He can't answer that question. What did they pass over? You see how he just ignored that question? Because what did they pass over? You're saying they passed over multiple bodies of water, rivers and oceans and seas and shit. The scriptures is telling you that they passed over one river. This cat's trying to say that they passed over oceans. Let's see.
Matter of fact, Matthew 9, and 9:1, he entered into a ship and passed over. Mark 5:21, when Yahushua was passed over again by ship.
Why is he only going in the New Testament? Where's the scriptures in the Old Testament that talk about passed over? Look at all the scriptures here that talk about passed over. He's all the way in the New Testament and shit. What you doing, bro? Why you all the way down here? Sneaky ass. I caught you, nigga. Yeah, he knew that he couldn't get away from it. And Joshua 4:23 says, "For the Lord your God dried up the waters of Jordan before you, until ye were passed over." No ships needed there. No ships needed, and they still passed over. So what you talking about? This is the KJV, right? And he was trying to play games later on and say, well, it doesn't say passed over. Yes, it does. You read it yourself.
So we see that the phraseology
watch when he reads it.
In regards to ship, right? Now you said Joshua what?
Joshua 4:22.
Joshua 4:22 and 22.
Okay, fair. So let's read. We're just going to read all the way to the end since it's right there. Joshua 4:22. Then ye shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. So it's identifying that it was on dry land because what is it referencing? The Exodus. Right?
No, it's not. No, it's not referencing the Exodus. It's just not. This is not talking about the Red Sea. This is talking about them crossing the Jordan. What are you talking about? This was 40 years. Moses was already dead at this time. So I don't think he's familiar with this part, which is another interesting, funny part about this whole live, is that, I don't claim to be, dealing with the Lord and none of this stuff. I don't claim none of this. I'm just San Miguel, man. Former Hebrew Israelite, now I consider myself an atheist. I don't consider any of this evidence of scriptures and whatever, that people try to show this so-called evidence for a God. I'm not convinced, man. I don't think it's good enough, and it's not good enough. That's why you always put me on the defense, because you can't defend your own beliefs, And look at what this cat is talking about. What are you talking about with the? This is talking about the Jordan, right? So why does it have to specify dry land? Now you're setting the criteria. You already set up a criteria that asks, well, where does it show that they passed over without ships? So that's why I showed you this scripture. And now you're pushing that criteria even further. Now you're adding something else and saying, well, it doesn't say dry land in 2nd Esdras. Why does it have to say dry land in 2nd Esdras? Does it have to be dry for them to cross over? So now you're creating things. You want the Bible to say something that you want it to say, nigga. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Bible don't have to say what you want to say, right? This cat's crazy, man. And this is called moving the goalposts. He wants me to show him a scripture that shows him that people crossed over without any ships necessary. People crossed over a river without ships. Joshua 4:23. Boom. What happened? Oh, nah. It doesn't say it is dry land. What, nigga? Why does it have to say that? According to you, it has to say that? Why do I have to please what you, I don't have to please you, man. This is a logical fallacy. Let me see if I can find. This is good enough right here. Logicallyfallacious.com. Moving the goalposts. Let's just read the description of moving the goalposts. demanding from an opponent that he or she address more and more points after the initial counter-argument has been satisfied, refusing to concede or accept the opponent's argument. Here's a form, logical form. Issue A has been raised and adequately answered. I adequately answered his issue by using Joshua 4:23. Then he raised another issue, and issue B is then raised and adequately answered. Well, I don't know if it was adequately answered to him. He thought he had a good rebuttal there. Oh, it doesn't say dry land. But you're setting that criteria now. Why does it have to say in 2nd Esdras dry land? It doesn't have to say that. It says that they passed over and they didn't have, just like in Joshua 4:23, they didn't need any ships to pass over. The word Passover comes from what? Death angel passing over the houses of Israel because they put blood on their doorposts, right? This dude was trying to make it seem as if I don't know these scriptures. I know the scriptures, man. I can read the Hebrew and interpret it. Later on, he's going to go into Deuteronomy 28. And he doesn't even read the entire Hebrew Deuteronomy 28. That shows you that Mizraim is talking about a place and not a condition of slavery. It's talking about the place. That's why it says that by the way whereof I spake unto thee. By the way whereof. The way is Egypt. They always say, no, it's Israel. That way is Egypt, where God said that he wasn't going to have the children of Israel return. But because they sinned against him, he had them return to Egypt, the place. And then he was trying to change the word by to mean save, where that's not what the scripture says. It says quana, which means to get or possess. And everything that he used to rebuttal it were scriptures that talk about possessing or buying or getting. And he's mixing the definition of redeem because it has two definitions. One is buying. That's it. That's all you have to go with. Now you're mixing that up with the definition for redeem, which means save. The Hebrew word for save is ga'al. And there are scriptures where redeem is used. And when you look at the Hebrew for redeem, you'll see that it's used as ga'al, G-A-A-L, which means to save. So that's when redeem means save. But when you see quana, it means to possess or to get or to buy. So there's two different ways to use redeem. It doesn't say redeem in the first place. It says to buy. Why do you want to throw in redeem? Because that's what y'all do. Y'all rephrase things to mean whatever the hell y'all want it to mean. And y'all want to say, well, it's contextual. It's not contextual because it's talking about buying and selling. That's why the scriptures before, it says that you're going to offer to be sold. That's what it's supposed to say. The King James says you shall be sold. But sometimes there's something called past participle where the words in past tense could still mean a present tense if it's used in past participle, just like burned. When the bush burned, it wasn't burnt completely. It kept burning. But the scriptures in Exodus chapter 3, verse 2 tells you that it burned, which means it was burning. The bush was burning. And it described it in past tense with the ed at the end of burn, which means burned. But in the Old English, this is what you got to understand. In the British English, words were used differently. So when you see the word burned, you would think it's past tense, but it was used as present tense. When something is brass doesn't get burnt. It's not like charcoal. It's not like paper. It's metal. It gets refined. It burns and it glows and it gets hot white. And that's what it's describing in Revelation chapter 1, which is another scripture that you guys rephrase. But I use that burn, that past tense, to show you that even in Deuteronomy 28:68, when it says that you shall be sold, that sold, that past tense, it's not always that it happened. It could mean that it was trying to happen. It was actively happening. Present tense. And it says nobody bought them, which is a curse. And that this did happen. You can look into the book of Josephus. I believe it's chapter 3. I got to get the paragraph. And it explains to you how they came to Alexandria in 70 AD. Israelites were brought on ships. And they weren't sold. They died when they got there to Alexandria, Egypt. Because they were waiting to be sold. And they were never bought. They were offered for sale. And they were never bought. Now, there are versions that says that they offered themselves. Now, I remember when I did my video back in 2017 when I talked about Deuteronomy chapter 28, I mentioned that, but it can also mean that they were offered. There's different translations and there's no way to really pinpoint exactly how it was said, but unless that, if you read the whole thing into context. And when I read it into context, it's talking about them going to a place where God said that they were already at, which is a place. That's why it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, that thou shalt see it no more again. There, which is the place, they're trying to make it seem like, no, it's the condition of slavery. And it's just not. So that's what lets me know that this is all talking about something else. And when you read verse 36, it tells you that they were going to come into this slavery with their kings. And there were going to be, I can read it, Deuteronomy 28. And what is it, 36? Just real quick, because they always ignore the scripture because it goes against, their narrative of the, black Americans, African Americans being the Israelites. But why would it say this? The Lord shall bring thee in thy king. What king was brought through the transatlantic slave trade? That's number one. Which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. So if the father of the Israelites did know the Edomites, then this scripture doesn't make sense with your transatlantic slave trade, scenario. It just doesn't. And you can see that. And then here it tells you that moreover he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt. Is this Egypt talking about slavery? All the diseases of slavery? Or is it talking about the diseases of the land of Egypt, which already happened? So you can play with that word Egypt whenever you want. But when you read the Bible all into context and read this chapter all into context, you can see that it's not talking about what you guys want to talk about, man. Which is, you want to throw in the word redeemed because you want to play with the word save. When the word redeem means many different things. And sometimes it can mean buy. So just because the root word means one thing, you're trying to change the usage of it by saying, well, the root word is connected to this. The root word of buy is not redeemed. So, that's a big mistake, and it's a logical fallacy. It's like saying, okay, well, the word angry means mad, and the word mad can mean crazy. So that means that the word angry means crazy? That's what you're saying, basically. You're playing with two different definitions for one word. I hope y'all see that. I'm not trying to lie to y'all. I'm just trying to be real. This is what the Hebrew Israelites do. This cat was just completely lost on this whole 2nd Esdras chapter 13. And I think he realized that, and, he had to do another video to redeem himself. No pun intended.
Verse 23. For Yahweh your power dried up the waters of Jordan from before you until you passed over, as Yahweh your God did to the Red Sea. He dried up from before us until we were gone over, that all the people of the earth might know the hand of Yahweh that is mighty, that ye might fear Yahweh your power forever. So he identifies the fact that what had happened, that it was dried up. We see in 2nd Esdras, it's passed over. And that passed over phraseology is typically in regards to a usage of a ship. Furthermore, we even identified earlier in this chapter when it said he carried them over the waters. A large group of people, in this regard, there has to be a mechanism large enough to carry these people, especially that they're going to be, it's a year.
But those are the Assyrians that own those ships. Now you're saying that the Israelites took those ships? It doesn't say that they took those ships. It says that they took the counsel amongst themselves to leave the multitude of the heathen, not to fight the multitude of the heathen. There was no fighting. They just left. So you're saying that they stole the ships from the Assyrians or that they built their own ships? You're not specifying any of these things. You're just saying they got ships. Where? They were already in another land. Time had already passed and elapsed. This is over time. Because there's history of them serving in Assyria. You think this happened right away? They were in Assyria for years, man. These cats are retarded.
You understand what I'm saying so far?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but here we have that same phraseology of crossing over, but yet it's dry.
And notice the fact that it specifies it being dry, though. It doesn't specify that here in Esdras.
It doesn't, because it doesn't have to be dried for them to cross over. Why does it have to be actual dried? it doesn't have to be dried. You can still cross over a river without it being dried, because if the passages are blocked or stopped, the ground could still be moist. It doesn't have to be dry, bro.
It said the Lord did signs, which is, what do we know that of the Lord doing? The Red Sea, the Jordan River. What did he used to do with body of waters? Because now you're telling me they got ships. Where did the Israelites get the ships from?
What do you mean? Where did they get the ships from? They were in Assyria.
It also doesn't
They were
say,
in Assyria.
It also doesn't say where they got the ships from. Just like it doesn't say that it was dried up. It also doesn't say how these Israelites got these ships. If they were getting away from captivity, they were running away.
Hold on. Watch this.
Yeah. Now you want to cut me off because it doesn't contextualize. You want to throw that in and say, well, it's contextualized. You could just assume that. No.
Are you familiar with who's speaking in this particular passage?
Joshua?
No, in Esdras. In Esdras.
The prophet Ezra.
No, the prophet Ezra is not speaking right
It's
now.
the angel.
Oh, right. The angel?
The angel is speaking.
Right.
He is.
So if I really wanted to push this brother, I could have asked him, well, how do we know that this angel really spoke to this brother, and how much time elapsed over this? It doesn't say that. But he wants to give you the impression that this happened like in a really short time. And, when you read 2 Kings chapter 17:6, it tells you that they carried them into Assyria and placed them in Halal and Habor by the river Gazan and the cities of the Medes. So this took some time. This didn't just happen, in a day. And again, if we read it in the Good News translation, it says that when they had, in verse 43, when they had to make the difficult passage across the Euphrates, God Most High performed miracles for them and blocked the channels of the river until they had crossed over. It doesn't tell you that they dried up the river. It just tells you they blocked the channels of the river, dude. Let's continue.
Is using this historical reference in regards to
historical reference. This is not a historical reference. I'm just letting this shit slide.
In the future. So he's not going to sit there and, so they got the ships like this. No, he's trying to get through to Esdras what's going to happen in the end. That's the whole point of chapter 13.
It's not going to tell you what's happened in the end. That goes on later. This is telling you what happened when they got to Assyria. So it's not going to tell you that this all happened, and that a lot of time passed over. That's exactly, they tell you, these are like serpents, man. They tell you exactly what's wrong with their belief, and make you think that they're right somehow, when it's right here. He's telling you that this is some time that passed over. It's not going to tell you everything that happened, because this could have been a long time that passed over. The Israelites actually do have a history of being in Assyria for a certain amount of time. This wasn't a one-day thing. This cat doesn't know his history, man. I'm sorry.
Right? He's the other peaceable multitude, and he's simply letting you know the other peaceable multitude is the northern kingdom. Right?
Mm-hmm.
In regards to the Most High showing the signs for them, our perspective is the fact that dealing with navigation. Because what does the Most High use?
I'm glad he said it.
Signs in the sky. The sun, the moon, and the stars. Right? And who was known for being able to read those
signs are just miracles. It doesn't have to be anything with the stars.
Right?
Yeah, the tribe of Issachar, and I forgot who else, but yeah, I remember reading that they were good at reading the signs of the stars. Now, my thing is that you would have to take the Euphrates from Assyria, or I don't know where in Assyria it was, because Nineveh is west of...
So we already established that it was in Gozan, right? By going to 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 6, they were by that river. And there's some history of that, right? If you look into this here, but I just want to just pull up this map. I haven't done much research into this thing, but this map right here is going to give you the location, which is what I want to show, where it goes on. The river is in Haran. So if the Israelites were up here, I was thinking that they were probably here by Assur or Nineveh, but I forgot about that scripture in Second Kings when I was on the phone with him, and that would put them over here now west. So if the Euphrates goes this way, they could go west. Why are you disregarding this as a possibility? You know, I'm even being open to his, crap. And he's just completely shooting it down like, no, there's no way.
Nineveh and Sur are both near the Tigris River. So in order to get to the Euphrates, you have to go west. If you look at the land, if you want to pull up the map, if you look at it.
Well, you can go south. So let me not just, let me correct that. You go
closer to the Tigris.
Yeah.
And it's really far inland.
But if you were up here in Haran and Kazan,
and then come out that way.
Well, let me see the map that you're looking at, because the other map that you sent me, I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't think that's even it, because earlier.
Yeah, I mean that map that I sent him, it wasn't to show him like this is an authentic map that was drawn up back then or something. It's just a map that was drawn up by people to give you, an example of the Old Testament. Just like the maps that are drawn up that show you the 12 tribes, their land and everything. It's going by according to, what Scripture says. It's probably not as accurate as you think. So it's just a map. Maps are drawn by different people. It's just to give you a location. And that's all that was the point of using that map. So let me see what it says.
Let's take a look at that.
We don't have to look at that. My point is not to prove where Arsareth is. You already claim to know where Arsareth is.
Yeah, so I don't think he was understanding this there, that, he's the one that's claiming to know where Arsareth is, right? This is what the problem with the burden of proof and understanding logic and addressing a claim at a time, and also the fact that I never claimed to know where Arsareth is. I'm saying that this is probably where it is. I mean, it's most likely going to be around that same area, on land. But now you're telling me that, no, it's all the way across, around the Horn of Africa. Now, this is an extraordinary claim. He's making it seem like, what's so wrong about this? It's like, okay, maybe if it was a crew taking a ship, but you're talking about 10 tribes, which make up thousands of people, children, old people, that have to travel. And, you have to feed and hydrate all these people on salt water, bodies of water that take, and it doesn't take a year and a half to do this either. But, I guess they can make that argument because of the amount of people. Maybe it could have taken that long. But I believe Columbus sailed from Spain to the Caribbean in 36 days. So, I mean, that's just a little bit over a month. A year and a half from here to there. I mean, it seems a little much. People have sailed for longer, but not that amount of people have sailed, not in that quantity of what they're saying. And have they ever found these ships that landed on the shore of, the east side of South America? Because really, when you do the research, everything that they're finding is across the Pacific coast. I'm gonna tell you what to look up, man. I'm not gonna go through every little thing. Look up Anchorage, and the Archaeology found Anchorage. I believe they have a university also. Then you got Yukon. They did some excavations here. The Bluefish Caves, right? Sorry. Then we got in British Columbia. Look up the excavations in British Columbia and Vancouver, in this area up here. What's this called? Yeah, Vancouver Island. There you go. They did some excavations there in Vancouver Island. Look into that. The San Francisco Bay. They did excavations all up in here. Now you see these little islands there? Santa Rosa Island. You got San Miguel Island. You got the Channel Islands. That's what they're called. There you go. Look up the Channel Islands of California. See that? What was the other one? San Nicolas is a very small island. I believe it's that one. Is it that one? very small island called San Nicholas Island. Oh, sorry guys. Read is that one? Is it San Nicholas? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they did some excavations there. So all y'all got to do is look that up, man. There's people with everyday lives, that are called archaeologists. I'll give you some names real quick, I guess. I mean, if you look at the references and all of these things that I looked up, you'll come across, man, you got John Rohrneck, you got Larry Lauren, Jane Boekstra, Morten Rasmussen. You have archaeologists, you have geologists. This is all dealing with sciences that people study for a good amount of their lives, dedicate their lives to these things. For you to just disregard it and just make it seem like they don't know what they're talking about, it's like, come on, man. All you're doing is reading an interpretation of a scripture, saying that this is true.
Identify with the fact that, like, what the Native Americans say about themselves, that they came from across the sea from the east, etc. Right? So this first one right here is from the Pre-Columbian Landscapes of Creation and Origin. The editor was John Edward Stoller. It's page 123. It says, all of the major Kishian sources are consistent, relating that the mythological founding fathers of the Kishian nations originated from somewhere across the sea. According to the Popol Vuh, the forefathers Balaam Kitse, and I'm probably butchering their names, but yeah. So Balaam Akab Mahukuta at Equibalam came from Cha'apa Palo, which means from across the sea in their language.
Across the sea,
now,
okay.
I'm not going to try to speak their language, so please forgive me. It says, where the sun emerges, that is from the east. Right?
Where the sun emerges, that is from the east.
So,
where the sun emerges, Japan is known as the land of the rising sun, right? They have the sun on their flag. You can look that up. I already did my video and put that all in there because this was supposed to be the reasons why he believes that Native Americans are Israelites. And all of this doesn't even confirm. It's actually confirming what I'm saying, that they came from the east. Of America's the west. I mean, come on, dude.
Wrote. Nonetheless, we see in their book, again, the Popol Vuh, which is the Mayan Bible.
Yeah, we can skip
Persian
this.
Gulf, and then they...
There's also Polynesians that used to come across the bay, because you can come from the Bering Strait and come down that bay that comes all the way down from California to Mexico. And that's where the canoes come from. The canoes is a Polynesian vessel.
Yeah.
Those long...
So you could look that up too.
So
let's look that up.
the east is what? They came... Which direction did they go? Because I don't know if that's...
Yeah, so what he pulled up doesn't tell you which direction the Mayans came from. It tells you that they came from the east, but it doesn't tell you which direction they went. I'm sorry. It tells you they were in the east. Well, guess what? Asia is known as the east. So that doesn't agree with what you're saying. The Middle East, the Levant area, which he was saying, the Israelites are called Afro-Asiatic, so that's why they have Asian DNA. No, West, this is Asia Minor. It's completely different from the DNA that you find in East Asians. Completely different. The connection to East Asians and Native Americans is so prevalent. When you're talking about a Middle Eastern, you can pull up Canaanite and Middle Eastern DNA from some of the dead bodies, and you can do dentistry. You can check all of these different sciences, right? The genomics. There's different ways for you to verify. How do we know what this person is? And the DNA is all related, from Jewish to Arab, all this Middle Eastern, people from the Levant, even going up to North Africa. So what you call Afro-Asiatic. Yeah, all these people had similar DNA. And it's completely different from what we know today to be the Asian and Native American. We can test them today. They're not similar. So why are you saying that they are?
They came east. The east is America the West.
Yeah, if America's the West, Asia's the East, dude.
Yes, America
The
is.
problem is that he believes that there's a fucking ice wall or some shit. That's what I think. Because if Asia's the East, and you're a flat earther, you probably don't think that you can get across this way. You probably think that you could only go west from the East. Because that's why he's already concluding and just disregarding that maybe there's another possibility. No, there's no other way. You got to come from this way because you can't go that way according to him. That's why he's concluding that. So he has all these limitations. It's all information control. He tries to say that we don't do that with the Sicarii. We let you on my live, but you can see that you're actively promoting information control. Why are you only assuming that they can go west from the east? You can go from the east and go east and still end up in America. Like this is just pure ignorance, man. And I mean, it wasn't a waste of time. And this is nothing personal to the dude. You know, I was trying to talk to y'all for a minute. I felt like y'all was ignoring me and dodging me. So I felt that I had to go about it a different way to get on, to talk to you. And you know, once we got on the live, I told you who I am and I explained exactly what I believe. So, you know, for this brother to call me insincere, it's just not correct. You know, I never told him that I believe I wanted. You know, I told him that I wanted to come to the camp downtown. So the first question I asked him was how often do you go downtown? And he gave me his number right away. You know, that's not my problem. That's, you know, probably shouldn't be giving her his number right away because you're gonna have people that are willing to test and challenge your beliefs. So you got to be ready to answer, defend your beliefs. What you try to do is put people on the defense. Other people, well, how do you know they're Asian? How do you know that? Well, where do you get that from? I don't know how to Google stuff. Like, bro, you could just Google it, man. That's it. And you purposely trying to make it seem like, well, we don't know. Nobody knows. When you know that there's so many connections. I already showed you from the linguistic, from genetic, archaeology, from a cultural, from, you know, so many different avenues, man. How Asians are connected to Native Americans, through the Siberians. The culture is there, man. You know, you wanting to ignore that, it's like you want to live in your bubble. And you want to use these so-called artifacts that have never even been tested. You don't know how they have been verified. You want to assume they're true because you have a presupposition. Like I said from the beginning, this is nothing new. I used to think just like this dude. You know, he seems like an intelligent guy, and you can tell he excelled in the cult. He's learning from these leaders, and they're training him to do selective thinking. This is selective thinking, and just ignoring certain things, constantly moving the goalposts, reversing the burden of proof on people, not defending your own beliefs, assuming that just because somebody can't prove it wrong, that it must be true. I mean, so many logical fallacies, man.
And so, which direction did they go from the east?
This is the thing. Oh, okay, so Ben, watch this.
That's the thing.
Let's say that they took the route that you said, in regards to, I forgot the body of water you named.
The Pacific Ocean, pretty much, and the
called
Beringia Sea.
The Beringia Sea.
Yeah.
You said that it was a bay, right? So Ben, let's say that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's not really a bay. If I called it a bay, I was incorrect on that. But it's this Beringia Sea. They could have just crossed that, but there's also evidence of them crossing on land. The evidence of them crossing on the sea, there's some people that actually believe that. There's few archaeologists, but the majority of them believe that it was inland. And there were different migrations now. There's more evidence piling on. Now, were the Siberians the first people in the Americas? That is not verified. And it doesn't matter because still the time frame was way before 700 BC. So even the second and third and fourth migrations were all before 700 BC anyways. You know, and the evidence that you're trying to use, the Las Lunas Decalogue stone, has Greek influence, which is after 700 BC. So your dates are all mixed up. Your timeline, you have no concept of linear time, bro. You know, and I hope that the dude really took this seriously. I mean, you know, you could tell that he was affected by my appearance on his channel because he had to do, you know, he was commenting all types of stuff. You know, this dude actually kicked me off at the end of his channel. You know, when I wanted to ask him more questions, he wasn't trying to really address all the issues, especially the way that he was breaking down Second Ezra chapter 13. Like, you're just completely ignoring. And then, I mean, if you want to go to Second Ezra chapter 13, if you think it's oceans that they cross, well, why is it talking about that the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again? Because a stream is not an ocean. A stream is a river. Oh, my bad. So we see that stream is a small, narrow river. You see that? So when we read the scriptures talking about the Lord staying the springs, this is what held still the flood means, is staying the springs of the river till they were passed over the river, my friend. Come on, son. Don't play with me.
From the Asian side, right? That from where they are at that moment, that would be considered west. So they would have rolled their
No, it won't be considered the west because it could be east and west because the earth is a sphere. The earth is not flat as you imagine. You can get from Asia to America going east, and you could get there going west. You can get from Assyria to America going east or west. But you are just saying that they went west. According to what? Second Ezra chapter 13 tells you that they actually went east. Right? Let me see. It says... I think it says that they went east, verse 41. But the 10 tribes decided not to stay in the land among many Gentiles. So they moved farther east to a country where no human beings have ever lived before. Assuming that this is true, it would put them somewhere in like that Kazakhstan area, and this whole area up here. It would be east. Maybe they went up here. This is technically east. It's northeast, but it's still east. Just assuming that this translation and just this interpretation, everything here is true. Assuming that there was an angel that had accurate information. Assuming that all that is true. We don't know that. So that's another issue here. But either way, when you read the scriptures, it says, verse 45. Verse 44, obviously. We read this already. We're going to keep reading it just to get this through some of your heads. Because you can't see for what it is. But it tells you, God Most High performed miracles for them and blocked the channels of the river until they had crossed over. Their long journey through that region, which is named Arsareth, took 1.5 years. And they lived there ever since. Now in these last days, they are coming back home. And once again, God Most High will block the channels of the river so that they may cross over. So if they're crossing over and coming back home, which is to Israel, and they're crossing over rivers, you're saying that they're across the ocean. That don't make sense. So it's inaccurate. They want to stick to this KJV because, the Old English could be very confusing to us because nobody talks like this anymore, man. They love going into that, but kind of want to skip over some of this.
They did write that they came from the west.
Wait, Asia is known as the east.
What I'm trying to tell you is...
Yeah, he wants to ignore that. Asia is known as the east. The land of the rising sun, where the sun rises in the east. It's a little frustrating, man, dealing with these cats because they're trying to push their agenda. This guy has an agenda. He already wants to presuppose and assume that they only went,
Not really, no. And also, I need to know, who, you said these are the Mayans that said, or the Aztecs said that?
The what I quoted was the Popol Vuh.
Okay, that's
which is known as the Mayan Bible, if you will.
Okay, so they came from the east. Okay,
so just so we can go back to the map. All right. And let's also type up what is the East. The East is Asia. Is the East Asia? Let me see. Is Asia in the East or West? The term Asia refers conventionally to the eastern portion of the Eurasian landmass, plus the island country of Japan and the island nations of maritime Southeast Asia. The continent is situated almost entirely north of the equator, except for some some Southeast Asian islands. So Asia is typically referred to the east and the land where the sun rises. Land, let me see. The rising sun is Asia. I think that's why they took down my video, because I had that song from the Animals, that House of the Rising Sun. I love that song, but that's a very, very popular song. And I got copyrights on Instagram and on YouTube for that song. I think that's what the issue was. But nevertheless, I'm here, doing this again. I know if some of y'all seen that video, America is Not Arsareth, my original video. That was a great video. It took a lot of time to edit it. I don't think I'm going to edit videos anymore after this, because it takes a lot of time for them to just, whatever. Let's just keep going to this video to see what he's talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Asia is known as the land of the rising sun of Japan, right? That's why their flag has that sun on it. So, I mean, there's the East right there. Now, like I said, there's what Native Americans share a lot of genetic traits with Asians.
I mentioned the dentistry, the teeth. I mentioned the monolith eyelids. That's very rare.
Well,
Also,
let me
they have trouble metabolizing alcohol.
Let me say this briefly. The Israelites, in regards to anthropology, like civilizations of antiquity,
Right.
what were they also called? Afro-Asiatic people, right?
Yeah, so I already addressed that. Afro-Asiatic people has nothing to do with Eastern Asian genetic traits, because Asia, at that time was considered Persia, and all of that. But I mean, it still is, or India. But Asia Minor, pretty much. But that is assuming that Moab and Ammon.
So much as regards to
Or,
they
I'm
the
sorry.
Asians? No, because not only are we classified as Afro-Asiatic people, right? But it's
But
not.
that's only by land. You're classified as Asiatic because of the land mass, not genetics. So
Their family tree is so far
doesn't
from
understand
ours
certain things.
in regards to ancestry, if you will. Because again, Lot was a nephew of Abraham, who was our forefather.
Lot was a nephew of Abraham, who was our forefather. So what does this have to do with it?
They're like people from the Levant area. I don't know. But that's a whole other thing. I
I don't know
don't
what just
subscribe
happened.
to that either. That's all.
I mean, that's
charged.
as far as the 18 nations thing. I mean,
That's where he got that from. The 18 nations is another one West doctrine, which shows you that Moab and Ammon tells you that Moab and Ammon are supposed to be the Chinese and the Japanese. But then you still have the Vietnamese, you have Siberians, you have people from Tibet, you have people from West China, which look completely different from people from East China. You have Asians. India's, like I said, India's considered Asia. So Asians are a very diverse group of people to begin with. That's why I'm specifying that Native Americans are considered Northeast Asians, Siberians. So there's different genetic traits there. You're just saying Ammon and Moab is Japanese and Chinese. You have Cambodia, you have Vietnam, you have all these different places, man. To just say that, oh no, well, one of them is Jacob, or one of them is Ammon, one of them is Moab. Like, come on, man. The way that they just get away with saying whatever the hell they want, man. I don't know what's happening here. This thing's skipping. Hold on.
Time that Jacob or Lot was supposedly existed. There was a lot of history in Asia that the Bible doesn't even speak about, because they had no clue what was going on that side of the world.
So also, yeah, like during the time when Lot and Moab and Ammon and all that time that they supposedly existed, because there's no evidence that they did, there were already people in Eastern Asia, in China. There were already dynasties that existed. For you to, like, come on, man, this is just lack of knowledge here.
Now, if you're saying, that they're more Asian, that they do have Asian features, because Issachar and Levi have the same mother and father. So,
No, because no, this is the point that really has to get across brothers' minds. Is the nation of Israel is not homogeneous. We don't only have one.
Yeah, they're not homogenous, but you're saying that they're the Haitians, African Americans, and Jamaicans, West Indians, right? These are mostly West Africans, people that came from Togo, Benin. So let's take a look at those type of people. Togo, Mali, Benin, right? Like my wife. Togo and Benin. Something's messed up with my damn space bar. Sorry. Alright, so some of the people from that area, right? Just so we could get a good look at, some of the features of these people, I don't know if you can see that. Put it in the middle there. Yeah, there you go. These are people that typically look like some of these these black Hebrew Israelites that you see in Florida. Togo and Benin is the place where the majority of these people in Haiti came from, and their features just don't look like people that are just Native American. Just don't look like that. I'm sorry. And not only do they not look like that, there's the history behind them. It's just there's no connection. Connection goes way, way back into a different time that y'all don't even believe in, because y'all don't believe in the paleo, times and none of this. Y'all believe the Earth is only 6,000 years old, so you don't believe in the Clovis people and none of that. Of course not. But that's what ties Native Americans to the Siberians. You want to say that these Native Americans look like people from Togo and Benin. It's like, come on. Like, let's come to reality here. Like, try to meet me halfway. Like, let's be reasonable here. Like, you understand what I'm trying to say when I'm telling you that this is a problem here. This is a goddamn problem. You trying to make it seem like what? Like, what you mean what? You're trying to say that these people are related to Native Americans, and they're not. This is a whole different culture from the Native Americans, man. This is just completely different culture, man. Let's stop messing around here. You can look all this up, man. The genealogy of Native Americans. We could look at that. We could look at Siberian. Let's look at ancient Siberians, I guess. Okay, prehistoric Siberian, ancient Siberian. Let's look at the images here. Here we go. Man, look at all these images of Siberians. Look at their culture. You gonna tell me this is not similar to Native Americans? You're playing me. You're lying to me. Lied to me. Tell me lies. Tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies. I wish I could see some of the comments right now, man. I can't really see it. I know I'm live, and I wish I could interact with y'all, but I'm just trying to put this information out here. Because my video was taken down, so don't know if this page is good right now, but you can see some of these photos here on the far right. They go to some of these fringes and feather hats, and they pass around a drink in a circle just like Native Americans. There's many cultural things, cultural similarities, connecting the Native Americans to Siberians. This is a good article right here. I'm usually not a big fan of The Guardian because, in some of the ways that they word this makes it seem like it's just completely changing all the science. They always do that. But, it just doesn't. It doesn't change all the science and what's known. It's just adding on, and it might challenge some pre-existing assumptions that were made based upon the fact that we know that Native Americans did come from Siberia, because that's known. So there's assumptions that people make, and now we assume, we should be able to find artifacts here, and those assumptions are always confirmed. So look up, these different articles, and also look up the people that are mentioned in these articles, the archaeologists and the paleontologists. I have a whole list here that I had the last video with tons of references, which is what you need to look for. It's just the references. You can go to Wikipedia and look at the references. Look at the references that these Hebrew Israelites bring up. You'll see that they don't match. I brought up earlier about how they say that Arsareth is America, and that's what Christopher Columbus was saying. It's like, have you verified that? You haven't. You have not verified that. But the main connection to Native Americans that you find is coming from Eurasia or Northeast Asia. They go as far back as Eurasia now if they want to go back 30,000 years. But they haven't really verified some of those things. But they have gone as far back as 10 to 20,000 years and found all types of archaeology from South America to Montana, Wyoming, Mexico, Monteverde, South America, even in Florida, that connects the Clovis people, which all came from Northeast Asia, to Native Americans. They all descendants from that, so they share strong genetic connections. I really don't want to go over a lot of this because it starts going into him just reversing the burden of proof, pretty much.
Can understand how that can, they may have been over here doing that, and they have this type of teeth that matches this person's type of teeth. They're closer to these people because it is all the way back. They begin to come back to Israel and be saved.
So they're going to go back to Israel, and my thing is, at this point, the latter days, when you go to 1 John, those are the last days too. So what are the latter days? How long are...
Yeah, the last days, they can always flip that to mean back then or now. And, they go into how the scripture says that in 3 days, the Lord is going to revive them. And, they can always use days as 1,000 years. Their time frame just always changes depending on what they want to, the point that they want to get across. So when scriptures that you read where it says it took them this many days, it can change depending on what they want to teach. It can actually literally mean days, or it can mean years or thousands of years. And that's called spiritualization. They did that when Jesus Christ was, supposedly going to return in the year 2000. This is what Hebrew Israelites taught at that time, the majority of them. When it didn't happen, they said, well, he came back spiritually, and we're in that third day. So this whole doctrine that he's teaching, it all comes from 1 West, 125th Street. They just revamped it in many ways, and this is what Guerrilla Hebrew is teaching now. But these people can't teach you why there's no mention of the tribe of Dan in Revelation. They make it seem like they have all the answers. They don't. They can't tell you why the name Yahweh was said to only be mentioned or known in the book of Exodus when he revealed his name to Moses, but yet before that you have a tribe called Yahweh Da. you can't explain that. You can't explain why the scriptures in Deuteronomy 24:16 says that the Lord shall not punish the children for the sins of the father, but yet he punishes bastards. He killed King David's child. There's so many issues with the last chapter of the book of Mark where, there's records of the chapter being only 9 verses. And then, later on, as time went by, they started adding on. And now you have Bibles where the chapter has, 16 verses or 30 verses or whatever it is now. There's no original books. There's no official verified, account of Matthew and Isaiah and Jeremiah and these people. You just have to go by what the cults were copying at that time. They were copying these groups by the hundreds. I'm sorry, they were copying these books by the hundreds. All these different groups and cults. The Essenes were was the cult that